We kick off early. My name is Marieke. My surname is a little bit longer, de Ruiter de Wild. But you can find me online very easily. And we're going to talk about agri-food and blockchain. And I think, so blockchain is about 14 years old, 1-4. I think about 7, 8 years ago, we said like blockchain, then it became DLT, distributed ledger technology, and now it is Web3, right? Who sees Web3 for the first time? Beautiful. Okay, I'm going to explain what it is. Yeah, but do people who work in blockchain agree that, you know, the sort of the common term is now Web3? So what you see is that we have the same content, the same stuff, but we change the way we label it. And it doesn't really necessarily change what we do. Now, the title here is Game-Changing Traceability, because I think if blockchain is known for one thing to do, well, I would say pretty well. I don't know, Chainpoint is, I think, a traceability system as well. Do you think blockchain is relatively okay for traceability? Sorry, I had to make a remark because we have, this is recorded, and therefore I'm with a mic, and therefore if you have a question, I have to push you a mic, sorry.
We try this one?
Yeah.
One, if it works, yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Marieke. I think for certain situations...
Yeah, so maybe you can introduce yourself so we start to know each other a bit.
I'm Johan Sandberg from Chainpoint, and Chainpoint is one of the Blockstart partners, by the way. And we've learned that there are quite a few situations where blockchain adds value, certainly. As Ruta, you mentioned where trust is important, where correctness is important, where transparency is even more important, and as Michael said, where there's not one party that want to keep control of the supply chain, which is quite useful.
So I think in summary, you're talking about traceability.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, but so I think after 14 years of, you can just drop it and then we'll throw it across the room. So if now 14 years later, blockchain, we of course know is famous for cryptocurrencies, right? It's also famous, and not infamous, but only famous for traceability. And one of the points I'm going to make is that it's not only a traceability system, but it's really re-engineering how we think about software and how we deliver software. So I think with Web3, what we're doing there is not only talking about a traceability system, but we talk about a new way of software. Development, delivery, buying, everything around software for agri-food. We have an hour. I'm happy that it's a small group because I always think that you get more out of it if we can really have some good discussion here. I am going to involve you, so if you're really uncomfortable with it, just move one seat backwards. I'm going to, yes, this is the time now. You have many choices. I'm going to explain what is Web3. I'm going to give you 2 cases that we develop ourselves. And I'm going to give you a framework for success factors. And I'm very curious to know how you rate your own, if you have a blockchain, or if you know something about the blockchain implementation, how you would rate that. And then we're going to do that together, because I think the group is small, so I think we can do that together. Very briefly about me, I started with something that we would now call computer science in Wageningen University, not very far from here. It's very far, but I'm from Amsterdam, that's even further. So for me, it's everything, like it's close. I compiled my own master's because back then we were only 5 people and it was very limited, I thought. So I went to the University of Amsterdam. I went to different universities in different countries. Anyway, 15 years later, I came back to the Netherlands, started to work with Wageningen. I think 4 or 5 years later, I left Wageningen because it was too slow for my liking. We did great research, very much on agri-food supply chain and information topics. Then I became a director of a software company that actually digitizes the compliance process at farm level, AgriPlace. And then blockchain came in the financial world. And then I think, to my understanding, it matured around 2015. There was a lot of buzz, but you also saw stuff happening. The graph that you see there, I think some of you recognize that. This is the value of Bitcoin. So around the time, it became apparent that, you know, blockchain is something that's here to stay. It will stay. It will remain for a while. And that is where I fully jumped onto blockchain for food, because I still think, and I even think more today, that blockchain has such a transformative contribution to food. And money is a means to an end, but food is the end, right? Food is the beginning and the end. So I really wanted to bring blockchain to food. And well, a few years later, we're still doing that. In the beginning, I didn't want to develop our own blockchain solution, because there was a lot happening at companies like IBM, at, you know, companies with good budgets and good researchers and good sort of developers. But along the years, we noticed that none of them were really suitable for food. And this is also what we'll discuss later on. But they don't understand the agri-food, the complexity of agri-food supply chains. And there's another session on supply chain, and I actually hoped we could merge those two. Because in food, relative to other domains, there are many transactions, there are many players and many transactions. And that is also why blockchain is such a beautiful fit. But that's also what makes it difficult if you want to work with Hyperledger or even Ethereum, because the moment you start pushing transactions, your costs go through the roof. So we started to build our own layer 1 blockchain, and that now is Open Food Chain, and we put that in a foundation last year. So that's me, and now I want to know a little bit about you. We had Chainpoint already, and yeah, this is where we start throwing.
Yeah, you have to use it like this,
yes.
So you have to speak in
I think we can do, so let's just do a quick introduction. I would even say, maybe this is very rude, but drop the names, because you won't remember it anyway, but your company and what is your blockchain experience?
Okay.
Yeah.
Shall I start?
Yes.
Company OostNL from the Netherlands, blockchain experience, previous job at PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, think back in 2015, so maybe a little bit at the beginning, and now one of the Blockstart partners.
Cool. So let's start.
Caitlin. Oh, sorry, no names.
Yeah. Yeah, you can also do names.
Okay.
But you don't have to do them.
Caitlin, since it was announced, from Bax & Company, and previous blockchain experience, quite limited. I do the communications for the Blockstart project, so I've learned through editing.
Nice.
Some,
You're with a bunch of people. You come from Barcelona, right?
Indeed, yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, I'm from Kent University. I'm doing PhD research about the socio-economic aspect of the blockchains and feta cheese supply chains in Greece. Mostly about socio-economics, so it's not really about technical things.
Nice. Interesting.
Well, I've been introduced already, but my company is Windesheim, and I do research and lecturing also about blockchain technology.
Excellent.
Okay. Hi everybody, my name is Bart Predon. I work for BASF Vegetable Seeds. No experience with blockchain itself, but I do have a passion for innovation.
Excellent. Nice.
Victor van der Gulst, currently working for Windesheim University of Applied Sciences. And as of the 1st of January, I'm the new coalition manager of the Dutch Blockchain Coalition. And I have quite some experience with blockchain.
Yeah, now it's getting aggressive.
My name is Robert Nijkamp. I'm a farmer. And as a 2018 Nuffield Scholar, I had the opportunity to look what blockchain could mean for us as farmers. And especially in China, I saw huge steps they made, and very interesting. And I'm one of the proof of concepts over here to show a little bit what blockchain can do on farm level.
That's fantastic, because I remember in 2017, I visited a farmer near Baren for different reasons. And there was this big blockchain book on his desk. And he was one of the older farmers in the Netherlands. And that really came to my mind. It's so interesting how we often have assumptions about innovation, right? It's with the young, and it's not true. It happens everywhere. And I think it happens a lot at farm level. So
yeah,
very great. So. Yeah. Yeah, but it's really difficult, and I don't know if OSNL has the same experience, to get farmers in the rooms. So we're having an asset in the room here. Yes. Yeah.
I think it's great. We have a lot of poultry in Gelderland. I'm from the province of Gelderland. I think we are co-funding this project, and I'm interested in results for SMEs and also in stimulating new technologies for SMEs, especially also farmers. So nice.
Excellent. Thank you.
Kai Kruijsen, working for Subvention, which we help our clients to get grants for their blockchain projects. And also one day in the week, a teacher at Saxion Hogeschool at Enschede, and also teaching the new generation about digital technologies, including blockchain. Blockchain experience, some hands-on experience, and also several levels of education. Also from Victor. So
nice.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, nice. So what you can do is you can throw it. Yeah, and then you have an even better challenge because you have to hit Oliver Ricken in the end. Yes, that's how we do it.
Hi, hello everyone. My name is Dana, and I'm a project officer for Interreg Nort-West Europe, which is the main funder for this project. I have no previous experience with the blockchain, but I'm really interested in the results of the project. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, no, Oliver said he's tuning out. Yeah.
Okay.
My name is Miriam. I have a training center, management training. 6 years ago, I came across blockchain in Dubai. Got very excited about it. I started to follow courses doing hackathons. Unfortunately, by circumstances, the last 3 years I couldn't continue. This is the first event that I want to pick up and to see how far blockchain is in implementing comparing to that time.
Yeah.
And I'm also, by circumstances, became now a farmer because of the parents who were not able to continue. So.
And what sort of farm?
Akkerbouw.
Yeah. So nice, open agriculture.
So that's why the combination.
Yeah. Nice, honored again, and 2 farmers, a high percentage. Yeah, 3. Yes, Peach is also a farm. Yeah. Yeah. Oh wow, this is the best room we've ever had.
So my name is Matthijs. I work at Q Assurance. We do quality assurance and food safety technology. My only experience with blockchain is that I made a couple for fun. I'm a software engineer there, so that's my background.
Ah, excellent, nice, nice. And we had a discussion in the break that if it wasn't a discussion, it was a statement that blockchain is very complex if you are a developer. I think it's my team thinks it's not so much. What do you think?
I think it kind of depends on what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
I mean, the blockchain can be pretty simple.
Yeah, depends on your system architecture, right?
Also,
how complex it is.
The kind of data that you want to put on the blockchain.
Yeah.
And if it's a public blockchain, you're not worried necessarily about access controls and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have private or hybrid blockchains, that's an extra layer of complexity.
Yeah, nice. So this is for those who are less familiar with blockchain. There's a spectrum. It's public or private. Everything is almost in the middle, and that has a lot of implications on where you are at the spectrum.
Yeah, so I'm Skander. I'm his colleague. My previous blockchain, also a software engineer. Previous blockchain experience was an intern at some company, Atos. That was a long time ago. So it's fun to see what happened in the meantime, in 5 years or so.
Yeah. Cool. 2 developers, great.
Wilbert Hilkens. I'm director of Food Insights. We do a couple of projects in creating transparency in various value chains. Broiler, as Robert will say a little bit about it. different value chain, salmon, eggs, berries, and we use it as a technology. But apart from that technology, also a couple of other technologies in the solution. Based in the nice city of Den Bosch. It's about halfway Amsterdam, driving from Heerlen to Amsterdam. And active in North-Western Europe.
And the last one, I think, Maaike.
But Dan might join.
Maaike Buchner
Johan
from
did already.
Development Agency East Netherlands, so one of the partners in this project.
Yeah.
Yeah, my name is Dana. So, well, you've seen me today probably as well. I'm also part of Bax & Company, so one of the 4 that actually came from Barcelona. And my previous experience with blockchain, I think I came across it during my studies at Delft University of Technology.
Yeah.
And I was actually also part of the blockchain mission to Singapore a couple of years ago. So I've seen some Asian applications as well. Yep.
Very nice. Okay, so it's actually a good crowd because before we, when Peach and I were sort of preparing the session, we had, I think some of you answered some questions, right? And it was a very interesting spread on how many you knew about blockchain. And then actually it was about half said not so much. And I think only 20% said, well, I'm pretty aware of blockchain. But I think it's actually the other way around now. So I think most people here have good experience and there's only a few who are new to that. So what is Web3 and what is the relation to blockchain? So Web3 comes from Web 1. And this is Web 1. Who had this feeling? Who remembers this? Yes. Exactly. And then the internet is, you know, it doesn't fit. So this is Web 1. We all know this, right? And actually it should now be metaverse. But this is Web 2. And this is Web 3. And who recognizes this? It's an NFT. So rather than sort of going into the crypto, I thought it would be good to have an image of NFTs, because I think if anything sort of brought positive light to blockchain, it has been the art industry. And I think in Agrifood, I'm keen to learn from art and see what we can do to get that same sort of energy and positive approach towards blockchain. Now, what those sequencings are is that at first Web 1 is just reading information. And I'm based at Science Park in Amsterdam, east of Amsterdam. And not many know that the first email in the world was received at Science Park. And that was Web 1. Sorry, that was actually Web 2. Because Web 1 was really, you could only sort of, you know, only read from the internet. Web 2 is when we also started to write. So that was actually then that email was sent to Science Park. And then really Facebook gave a big boost to Web 2. Now Web 3 is actually blockchain and tokenization. And you have a lot of discussions on what it actually means and where you put the definition. But broadly speaking, what this happens or what this means is that we can now have business transactions over the internet. And that for food is very important and very interesting. And you can do that because your information becomes immutable. And the immutability is a key input for food, because in the end, in food, we have food safety, we have food security, we have things where we really have to have data integrity. And that is different to other industries. We need to know that the data we have, we can trust to a high extent. So that's basically Web 1, 2, and 3. And blockchain, yeah, just some super basics. You have blockchain and tokens. You can have blockchain without a token. You can't have a token without a blockchain, but you can have a blockchain and a token on an existing blockchain. And that's the difference between a token and a coin, in summary. But I think it doesn't really matter for the rest of the discussion. Does anybody have a question on Web 3 and blockchain per se? Do you sort of feel at this point like, I wonder how this crypto blockchain works, or is there any question with anyone on Web 3? Because that's actually all I wanted to explain about Web 3. Why is it important for food and why is it important today? And I just want to get some guesses. Why would you want to, why do people in agri-food need to think about Web3? Anyone? You can just shout. I'll repeat it. Yeah. Yes, to deal with complexity. Nice, beautiful answer. Yeah, share certificates. Yeah, compliance processes, efficient compliance processes. To reliable traceability. Nice one. One more. Authenticity. Yeah, yeah. So you know what you think it is really what it is. And the figures, I know that, for example, in olive oil, what you buy at Albert Heijn or a Dutch retailer, 1/3 of olive oil is not olive oil. It's an edible oil, but it isn't authentic. This is the first, so cluster is that you want to communicate about your food, right? And you want to, on the consumer side, when you are in a store, and it doesn't necessarily need to be a retail store, you want to know what you buy. And the incidences of fake food are increasing rapidly. So this becomes more urgent, and this is also why we now have, of course, this very good EU regulation, where if you buy something, you don't want other people to die from it, right? That's something nobody wants, but we're unaware that it happens. So this whole sort of consumer communication and making consumers, or giving the ability for consumers to consume more sustainably and more consciously, that's the core reason why you have to think about Web3. Now, the other cluster is this, it's compliance processes, right? This is a quality assurance department at some cooperative in Spain. And this is also at Albert Heijn, at Ahold Delhaize. This is in many agri-food companies, this is the case. So basically the two reasons, consumers and really peer-to-peer new innovation with your end clients, and business efficiency. So B2C and B2B. And our argumentation is that the B2B is a much more reliable component than the B2C. Because if you want to rely on a consumer buying your product, then if inflation goes up, oops, they make different choices, right? So if you want to have a reliable source for building a Web3 application, go for efficiency. Now, if you scan this with your phone, you get the blockchain burger. This is a hamburger that we made with chefs. As a lot of, we consider chefs as the influencers of the food system, because they have become much more popular in the past few years. If you look at the restaurant industry or restaurant industry, can you say that? Restaurants, chefs are actually not how do you say that? They earn least in the whole sort of restaurant business, which is weird because they are actually the ones who make the magic. So we started to develop this in order to show chefs what technology can do for them. And one thing is to give traceability on ingredients, but the other thing is that we put actually this recipe, we made it into an NFT, and we have sort of this awareness that if a chef would put its recipe on an NFT, and another chef could go and take that recipe, innovate on the recipe, and then hash another NFT, then you can get this really nice new way of making a cookbook, a digital cookbook, but it also can really be a better way of sharing profits and giving more margins to chefs. So if you click on the 9 ingredients here, you can see where they come from. It's the farmers directly who sort of announce, it's every individual actor who pushes the information to the blockchain. And what we added here is not only nutrition facts and sort of stories, but also CO2 and food miles. And what you can add here is deforestation free. All the ESG reporting becomes then much more accessible to consumers. And one of the key things that we noticed in this project or implementation is that for farmers, it's great to become visible to end consumers and be proud of your product and tell the end consumer about your product. So we think that this is it's a very short supply chain. We often get questions, is there a use case for blockchain in a short supply chain? Because mainly it is in long supply chains. We think there is. and for this sort of use cases. Are there questions on the blockchain burger? We have to throw. Yes. Nice.
I fully agree about short chains. It also can contribute, but it's also a weak point if farmers bring in the information added to the blockchain. The blockchain is immutable, but the information a farmer has is not. So, on one or other hand, you have to give people the feeling that it's safe, that the information is correct. How is it tackled over here in this project?
Yeah, excellent point. And this is this sort of comes to the discussion: what do you put on the blockchain and what do you not put on the blockchain? And probably a lot of information on sort of the storytelling of a product you don't want to have. So if it's a very easy question that you need to ask: does the information need to be immutable? 99.9% of the time, it doesn't, right? You do want to tell the story, but it doesn't need to be immutable because they believe it anyway. Or they can go and check or whatever. It doesn't need to be immutable. Then you shouldn't put it on a blockchain. But you can have it as a component added to the blockchain. This was on the blockchain because we wanted to test the use case. But the profile of a farmer, you probably wouldn't put on a blockchain. You would put the quantity and a quality indication and a certificate, but a lot of the other information you wouldn't.
Okay.
Yeah. More questions? The second use case, so this was the chef chain. And actually, we're still, the chef didn't want to produce a vegan burger back then. But he is now, so probably our next launch is going to be a vegan burger. And we actually tested, this was with Windesheim, I think. Was it? We tested the blockchain burger at the Floriade. And so we gave out the burger with the QR code to get some research on, what is the appetite for our consumers for information on the products that they consume right there and then. And the results were actually very supporting to this type of technology. The second, I would say, but the research is with, I think it was Windesheim. The research will be available very soon, but I think 80% was because of ESG components, really because of sustainability components. Because they want to know where the meat comes from, how damaging it is for the environment. And it was much more on that than on health, which is an assumption that, or I think there's plenty of research, it's often about health, we think. That the first reason is it needs to taste good, second, it needs to be healthy, and third, it needs to sort of not damage the earth too much. But there was a different order. Yeah. Yeah, Pietje. Yes. Did some exercise in the meantime.
I was wondering in the research, so they checked the QR code of the burger.
Yeah.
And would they do it, is that for once or did they
Yes.
repeat that? Because I can imagine, okay, I've seen it, done that, okay,
fine.
Whatever, I trust it, fine.
Yeah.
I don't have to do that again. But I was wondering, do they think, oh, this is so interesting, I would do this tomorrow again, and for this product and that product? Or did you have research have a look at it?
Yeah, they did. And actually, there's a larger basis of research because I think we had about less than 100 participants. But the overall conclusion is already in your question. No. So, so 1% of consumers scan products, but that 1%, and this was from C-level Unilever, said, well, we have all our consumer strategies based on that 1%. Because those are the influencers, those are the ones that if they make noise, they make a lot of noise. So that 1% is an important 1%. And overall, that's also why we say do not sort of lynch too much on the B2C component of blockchain if you apply it to food, but focus on the B2B. Because you actually want to go to a retailer where you know your retailer fixed that stuff, they take care of their products. If I buy something at a company X, I know it's reasonably fine, or it fits my preferences. So we think, or we know, that consumers do not like to scan. Some do. Those are influential, and they scan it once and then not again. But this then brings also, I think, a new discussion on the ground, and that is really the role of governments, NGOs, and journalists. Because what you see is that civil society, those are the ones who are scanning on a more constant basis. Those are the ones who are, you know, if there's something wrong, they go and make a story, or they go and publish a report. And that is why we also think in food you want to have an open public blockchain, because that allows whoever wants to go and peek. And that really brings in the value of blockchain. Now, this is the second case. If you scan this QR code, there's more work for you to do. And this is because this is a blockchain on a longer complex supply chain with with a unique bottle. So the burger was really a batch. So then you just have information of one batch. But here you have information very specific for that individual bottle. So you scan the QR code, there's two things, the best before date, and that's 2021-05-15, and then an identity of 334. So the batch is really the best before date, plus the ID is then the bottle. Yeah, and that's called juicy chain. This is the juice supply chain. You see that the apples come from Poland, bottled in Germany. And if you go down, you see the different actors in the supply chain. The UX is not great, so it's a bit difficult to sort of get your way around it. But if you go on the producer, you see the story of the producer, but you also see the certificates. And this is exactly what we heard in the beginning. Blockchain has a very strong case for compliance efficiency. So what happened here is that there is something that we call, or is called, the Sustainable Juice Covenant. This is, I think, managed by IDH, an NGO based in Utrecht, focused on different industries, and together with the juice industry, the global juice industry, to be very specific, they said by 2030 we want to be 100% sustainable, what means that all juice is certified. Then you can still ask the question, is that then really sustainable? Probably not, but is it better than we have today? Probably yes. So that's the Sustainable Juice Covenant. Then there is a juicy chain that actually is a foundation today. So you can find the juicychain.org website. There you find that the initiators are Refresco and Eckes Granini, and then the technology is juicy chain. And that reports against the process of juice that is certified. Now, what this also shows is that in this case, it is a certificate. And in the case of juicy chain, that's interesting, right? That was what they wanted to communicate. But you can have any sort of certificate or any sort of data that you add to a supply chain or to a blockchain. So it can be a lab result, it can be a claim, you can do whatever and attach that to a product. And that is basically a use case of blockchain that works like a charm, is much more efficient, generates a lot of efficiencies, and really makes the supply chain more transparent. Now, something on that transparency, not to everybody, it is clear that if you have an open public blockchain, that can actually have the strongest technology to protect your data. So sometimes people think that if it's open and public, everything is out there on the streets, but that's not the case. With, for example, zero knowledge proof technology, you can really protect that data and make it only available under a certain circumstance to a certain party in a certain time setting. So it's just to indicate that you can hang a lot of information in a blockchain. Are there any questions on juicy chain or sort of a longer application, a longer, more complex supply chain? No, really?
Yeah, it works if you fill in the right date. If you fill in
it's
that
probably
date
the dates are.
and the ID 334, then it works.
Yeah, so this is where UX is not great.
So you have to fill it in yourself.
Yeah. But I often call my team, man, it's broken, and then I just miss the hyphen or something. So, Yeah. Because they wanted to be able to show sustainability at bottle level. Yeah. And then you work with the system. Yeah, exactly.
I maybe also have a question. So how many stakeholders were involved in this project? Sorry.
Yeah.
I was also looking at the app, so maybe I missed it.
No. I actually have a picture of that. So what we're doing in all cases, and I think in most applications in Agrifood, and I'm keen to hear if I know that there are two blockchain applications in food. I'm keen to hear if they recognize this. But basically, you go from a very invisible, complex supply chain to a shared data infrastructure where you share documents. That is what it is. And it's actually a very boring thing to do, but it really gets way of the paper and it gets way of the inefficiency and faults that you have in paper processes. So if we then ask how many people are involved in a supply chain, as many as you have in your supply chain. In the case of the juice, it's 3 parties. It is the producer, and not farm level, but really more the cooperative level and the more aggregate level. The bottler, so where it gets in the bottle, and the retailer. And an advice that I would have for people who start working with blockchain, keep it simple. So start with 2 or maybe 3, but not more. Because the more you get, the longer your discussion and the longer it takes to get things off the ground. And in the case of the blockchain burger, it was only the farmer who put the information on, and it was the chef who sort of did the recipe. So that was a lot easier. We did that in 2 weeks. Are there more questions on... Yeah. Excellent.
Yes. We heard the story about Maersk and IBM this morning, about their problems with convincing other partners to join such a solution. If you start very small with just a couple of companies, what is your experience with convincing others to join?
Yeah, excellent. So we'll talk about governance later more in depth, but the answer is very easy. Work with an open public blockchain. Don't work with a proprietary, sort of semi-vague, unclear blockchain, because that's where nobody starts trusting nothing anymore. So that's the clear-cut answer. I think if they would have started with a public open blockchain, it would still be thriving. Are there more questions on the case studies? Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm still a little bit confused from the 2 cases that you have shown. Okay, you do it on the blockchain, but what makes it... You can also do that in a normal app.
Yeah.
Especially the burger one,
yeah.
Because you only had that one farmer.
Yeah, yeah, excellent. So I can actually give you a real case response to that. So when it was published, then somebody came and said like, oh, but the information that you have is not correct in terms of the meat. So the meat comes from the Veluwe, the Hoge Veluwe Natural Reserve, and they die from a natural death, and that's all sort of super sustainable. It's also very juicy and tasteful for those who eat meat. And then we had to correct that information, and then another block was added to the blockchain that sort of pushed the right information. And that then gives you a full traceability track record of errors that occurred and corrections that were made. And if it's really about the story of the farmer, maybe that doesn't matter. But if it is about the way how things are produced and if that fits my consumption criteria, it does matter. So it goes back to the immutability of data. You want to have a blockchain behind your app, because that's basically what it is, if you want to have immutability of data. So if you want to be sure that the data was inputted exactly as you see it.
And then the data should be certified data?
No, it doesn't necessarily need to be certified data, because I think this was a discussion in the morning. So if the beauty of blockchain is that you just say, if you push it to a blockchain, this is what I consider the truth. And then anybody else can go and verify that. If they then discover that this wasn't the truth, then I'm a bad girl, or I lied. That's the only power of blockchain in terms of food traceability and food transparency.
But you can go one step further and say, okay, how can I tackle that problem of the information which is put in?
Yeah, no, exactly. And that is where we want to go. And actually, where you also want to go, you want to go to a more what we then will call a peer-to-peer verification model. So there's two questions you always get when you talk about blockchain and supply chain. Oh, but data in is data out. Yes, true. So blockchain doesn't change anything on the input, on the output. It does make the visibility of fraudulent actors more visible. That's the only thing it does. And the second core topic is, but how do you fix that digital physical fit? That, when I have a password, how do I know that this burger that I'm eating is exactly that burger that it says that it is digitally? And that's also something that blockchain doesn't fix. That's why you need IoT. That's why you need other technologies. So blockchain is a very boring, simple technology that can only make data immutable.
If I may, Marieke, just a question for you. Victor, you were saying the Maersk, IBM, that failed, or they quit a few weeks ago. Because Michael, the lecturer from Surrey University this morning in a forum just before lunch said, one of the reasons was, or the most important reason was that one of those partners, I think it was Maersk, they want to keep control of their supply chain.
Yes.
They do not have, maybe, always have an interest in being so transparent.
Yeah.
How do you see that?
Yeah, excellent question. So there's a huge assumption that if you work with an open public blockchain, you lose control. And there's a very strong notion that that is the case. But that is not the case. And this is exactly why actually the topic is not blockchain, but it's really about innovation. It's really about going out and using technology where there's a lot of buzzword. There's a lot of gossiping, right? I mean, now I was in London the other day where there was this Token 2049 event, all very crypto related. There's so much gossip. So everybody gossips the hell out of everybody. And if you go and pick that gossip, then you freeze and you stick to the old normal because that's what you know. And that's what's happening. So I think it's a lack of a good innovation strategy. And it has nothing to do with blockchain. Now, this actually runs nicely into the next session. And that's where I'm going to hand out something. Who has no pen? Do we have pens? Yeah, I actually should have thought about that. Yeah, so maybe hands on who does not have a pen. 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe we make that 5. 5 pens.
And otherwise we share.
Yeah. Oh, look. Johan has plenty pens.
Who wants a pencil?
Ah. Oh, we have a source of pencils here. Oh, that's fantastic. Nice. Yes, so we're going to do some work. And I think we have about 20 minutes left, right? Yeah. So, yeah. Oh, okay. So we're going to hurry up. So I actually have 2 components that in blockchain are important for any sort of success. One is technology, and the other one is governance. So one technology, the other one governance. And I identified 3 per category. So tech is important, and governance is important. And I'm going to ask you to rate your own, ideally your own implementation of blockchain or your own experience of blockchain. And I'm going to take you through our own examples that we were just looking at. I'm going to assess them myself, so we have a feel of what this means and how this works. But so first tech, because tech is always the easy part, right? Tech is the easy part. the reason why you want technology is that you want to democratize the access to data. That's basically why you want to implement blockchain. And 3 aspects are important then: decentralization, scalability, and interoperability. Those 3 things. Is there anybody who wants to add something that you think like, yeah, but this is okay, but you really need a 4th? No? We're pretty much okay with this, right? Okay. Yeah. Yes. Sponsored by Johan. No, fantastic. Sharing is caring. So decentralization, scalability, and interoperability. I'll come back to it in the examples that we looked at. But everybody has some notion with decentralization. So that's really when, you know, power is distributed, no more middleman, peer-to-peer. Scalability is really go beyond the pilot. And interoperability is data talking to another data system. It's data really being able to, or data systems speaking to each other and data flowing from one system to the other. The second component of success is a good governance approach. And the first is user-centric, and this is Web 3. The big difference between Web 2 and Web 3, Web 2 is information-centric, so it was really about how do we get information out, and Web 3 is only about users. How do you make it good? How do you improve the life of your user? Second is open source. The reason, not everybody agrees here, but we think that if you want to have a robust system, so this is not because you want to you know, be transparent, but if you want to have a good system, you need to be open source. Because it's like in a kitchen. If you have an open kitchen, everybody can see what you're doing. And that makes the code better. I'm keen to hear, what do you think on open source development? I need the... Yeah, got that. What do you think about open source development?
You mean when it comes to blockchain or in general?
In general.
Yeah, I kind of like it. I use open source software a lot.
Yeah.
I like the fact that any problem you can think of, someone has probably already made a solution.
Exactly.
So yeah.
So it really sort of opens up this huge capacity, or a huge world of capacities, right?
Yes, and also cooperation. You can work together with someone on the other side of the world, for example.
Yeah, yeah, without having any trust or...
One thing you have to think about if you use open source software is how do you implement it in your existing technology stack?
Yeah.
And
it's not always plug and play.
No, so you have you create a system, you have overhead of maintaining, how do you say this? If you use open source software, you have to virtualize it in some degree so you can use it in your existing software. And setting up a system that does that takes a lot of, so you get extra systems to take care of that. Yeah.
Excellent addition. So open source is basically where you have a repository where your source code stands, and then everybody can take it. But then still to make it work, there's a lot that comes to it. So it's not that it's like a plug and play, easy to copy. And the third one, and I'm really keen to hear more, and I think I find it very interesting to see, if you have such a huge project that is sort of Interreg financed, how do you get your business models going? Because the success of an implementation of any sort of technology, it needs a business model. And I think that in blockchain, there's a lot of talk, well, you know, there was so much fuss, and now we see nothing anymore. What happened to blockchain? Well, they didn't have any business models. That's my very short answer. So if you have a business model under your technology, you will see it in a few more years. But if you don't, if you're very subsidy pushed, if there's no market demand for it, I mean, you still work with it because you have a business model. So I really think we should really emphasize the importance of business models. So those 6 criteria, decentralized, scalable, interoperable, on the tech side, and then on governance, user-centric, open source, and business model. Now, I'm keen, I'm going to talk through the 2 cases very quickly, but I'm keen to see you, in the meantime, assessing your own. And we can either have a few minutes that you do that and we then take the case? Or I don't know how good you are at multitasking. Yeah. Yeah, I'm afraid that's the case. Okay, so we're not going to multitask. Okay, let me just quickly run you through Chef Chain, right? So Chef Chain runs on open food chain, which is highly scalable. We can do 17,000 transactions per minute. There's no gas fees. We even have something that is self-onboarding, so people can join on their own account. So it's very scalable. It's interoperable because we are a layer 1 blockchain. And it's decentralized. It's a public, we actually work on the Bitcoin blockchain with the Komodo stack, so it's a very decentralized technology. And the self-onboarding guide basically has everybody setting up their own node. So on the tech, we score well. Now, if you go to user-centric, yes, it's pretty user-centric because it's actually very simple. There are not many users, and they had very clear demands, right? So chefs want to know where stuff comes from, and actually farmers want to tell their story, and consumers want to access nutritional information and food miles. So that was pretty easy. Now, in terms of open source, and this is why I'm happy that you made those remarks, open source sounds great. It is very complicated if you have big food companies that want to sign contracts with you and you do open source because their legal departments don't like open source. That really runs in a lot of problems. But on sort of the development point of view, it's a long process because before you really have a good open source community, it takes years. So I say we're orange here. We're not there where we want to be, but it's orange. And in terms of the business model with Chef Chain is a difficult one because who's going to pay for the bill of the technology? The chefs are not, the consumers are not, the farmers are not, restaurants, maybe. So the business model in the case of Chef Chain is the weak point. Yeah, well, restaurants do have some, there is an interest from restaurants, so that's why it's not red. There is how do you say that? Yes, yeah. Now, in the case of Juicy Chain, it's the same tech. So that is, we tick that off nicely. In case of user-centric, that's much more complex because there are much more users. It's unclear what they want because, yes, they want to have their certificates, but do they want to have the certificate or do they just want to have sort of a reflection of the certificate? Because now, if you go to the demo, you don't see the real certificate. And that is because they're still uncomfortable by showing the real certificate. And again, you actually want to have some data verification. You want the auditors on there. So the user-centric is really the challenging part in terms of the Juicy Chain. Open source, same story, same technology. And then the business model is a really good one because it were the two industry leaders who actually are their competitors who kickstarted the infrastructure, an open public infrastructure, but kickstarted by two very competitive parties. And now for everybody else to join, they pay an annual fee of 10,000 euros, and that's it. So the business model really works. Yeah. Oh, Mike.
Around 5 minutes.
Ah, yes. Yeah.
Thank you. So if I understand it correctly, these are it's kind of quick feasibility study for yourself.
Yes.
If all 6 are green, then it's yes, go for it. But if it's too orange, then you still would say go for it, right? Because you went for it. So
Yeah. But you wanna improve it. So the use of this framework is if you want to implement and work with blockchain, think about these. Think about tech. Yeah. But think about governance. It's the first sort of big statement, right? We often only think about tech. But in the case of Mars, did they think about governance? No, they didn't. So think about tech, but definitely also think about governance from point 0. Yeah. And then within these, think about these components.
Yeah. And Ruud and Victor, you did all the feasibility studies. Were these the same subjects you were looking at during your feasibility study?
Yeah, to a certain extent, tech was not so prominent in our feasibility studies, but the governance was really, and especially the business model. I totally agree with you. That's very important.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do they tend to forget the business model? Thank you. Shall I try this? Yeah. Yes. So it's a membership business model. So the tech is kickstarted by two bigger companies. They launched the technology, Juicy Chain, and now for other companies to join, they can either download or actually get the manual and do it themselves, or they pay an annual fee and they get onboarded. So it's a very straightforward. It's a SaaS. You call this a SaaS model, a software as a service model. So you build the system, and then you have a membership fee that maintains the system, and that sort of makes the system grow. Oh, you have to do this. I'm going to throw it to you.
Because I'm just thinking now, if Juicy was also about the sustainability, and also the bottle itself was part of the sustainability.
No, this is really only about the juice. We're working on the packaging.
Yeah, because then you can make a lot of money from the packaging
Yes.
itself.
Yeah.
That can,
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I have to put this away, otherwise I can't catch it. Yeah. Now, whose project can we assess quickly in 2 minutes? Who dares? Who dares to sort of, out loud look at your project and be a bit slightly critical? Yes, Wilbert. Food Insight.
Yeah. I take the poultry chain, which is interesting for Robert and for you as well. Now on the tech side, is it scalable? Yes. Is it interoperable? Yes. Is it decentralized? Moi. Because there is a part of the traceability is organized, and it doesn't need to be decentralized. It can be.
Yeah.
So it depends on what the users want to do. The governance side is actually, I think, is really different than yours. Is user-centric? Very much, I would say, but different than your Web3 definition. It's very user-centric because it accumulates just huge amounts of data, production data.
Yeah.
So you need to have great depth in that one. Is it open source? No, because the trust part is so vital in the project that open source could work, but at the moment not yet, I think. So
yeah.
it probably would be orange. And the business model, is it there? Yes and no, because the key thing was that you want to identify when there are problems. So when a whole value chain is in stress because of a disease, because of food fraud, or because of vermenging, versleping.
Vermenging.
Yeah.
Compiled products.
Then you want to have a traceability that you are for sure not involved.
Yeah.
And it means that you're the first to go ahead with your business. So since we started it, there haven't been really serious problems. So the proof of the pudding is, at the moment, there is a contamination. That was the word I was looking for.
Contamination,
so when there
is
contamination somehow,
yeah.
That you can be the first to move ahead. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to calculate with the chance that it happens. That's actually a core part of your business model.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's very valuable because it's one of the major risks in food produce. But yeah, it still has to prove, and actually, hopefully, it will never has to prove. But
yeah,
we know that there is a period that, a moment it will happen.
That's clear. Thanks. Anybody else dares to sort of assess? In 2 minutes, that's easy. You did 1.5 minutes, so we can do another. No? Otherwise, it's just goodbyes because this is it. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, nice. Woo! Beautiful. You did. You're a rugby guy. Yeah, you saw that. It paid off.
Case work. Okay. For the scalable, yes. We have like a private blockchain and also public blockchain. But like for the detailed information, we store in the private one, and the hash of the node in the private one we store in the public blockchain.
Nice. Nice.
For the interoperator is also to decentralize, of course, because it involves a public blockchain. User-centric, we have the apps for both producers and for consumers, so it's really user-centric. For the open source, I don't. It's like a little bit orange because like some information is not really shown to the consumers because it's too complicated.
Yeah.
For the business model, we plan to get the premium from the products from the consumers, so that could be the extra income for farmers.
Yeah. So you're pretty green on most, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have a next session, get that use case, right? Yeah. Nice. Well done. Okay, well, I hope this was useful. This is really only meant to help you sort of organize how do I work with blockchain in agri-food. We are very convinced that it is tech, but it's also governance, and that's where you can have sub-criteria. And elsewhere, or otherwise, I would just say Web3, it's all emerging, it's super new. If you're interested, go and explore. That's all you can do. Thank you all.
Thank you, Marieke.